This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
You can take 20 minutes.
Okay, so I've got 20 minutes.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. So I'm just going to try and power through the presentation, not necessarily talking about everything on the slide, but just kind of just giving you an overview. So can we move on?
Yep.
Slide. Okay. All right. So just a little bit about who we are as an organization. We are Pact, and we've been around since 1971, and we operate in so many different countries, some of which some of you are in, and some of the countries that I've heard this morning are some of those that we're interested in trying to get into. We've got loads of employees all over the world, and essentially, as an organization, we're striving to see if we can get to that world where everyone owns their future and all people are heard, capable, and vibrant. And essentially, we do this through the work that we do in different countries. And we're very much community-driven and community-based, and we work in, like I said, over 40 countries. But part of our key thing also is integrated development. So whether we're working in health, livelihoods, economic opportunities, capacity development, or governance, or business and markets, often or natural resources, we try to find the linkage between these two and how one supports the other so that we can get greater impact. Let's move on. And so this morning, really, the discussion I was hoping to have is really talking about a little bit about some of the trends that are driving increased focus around capacity development, first of all. I'm going to be interchangeably using capacity development as well as community-led development because one drives the other or one supports the other. I don't know why my slides are covering up, but anyway, on there, but not here. So some of the critical trends that we've noted recently are that all of a sudden, funders are wanting to make sure that granting is happening at the indigenous organization level, the local level. They want to see how they can cut down on the number of INGOs that are leading these processes. I mean, if we use USAID and the PEPFAR's desire of 20-20, 70-30 split between the technical assistance going on the 30 side while the local ownership comes, it's a journey to self-reliance. We're also seeing a lot more around decentralization, and what that means is that the different systems and the different actors have to have the right capacity to be able to function and to deliver on the results. And there's a recognition of the efficacy of localized solutions. Why? Because it's the people, it's their design, they own it, and that definitely naturally is more effective than anything else. And of course, we know the closing space for civil society globally. We've seen that. And then global expectations for measurable and at scale outcomes. And this is one of the reasons why community-led development excites us, because for us, this is what we want. We want communities to own these things, and we also want to be able to have evidence that informs what we're doing, and we can have that conversation, and we will be in a better footing to be able to have those kind of conversations. And of course, more and more, we want to draw on the private sector engagement for development. Again, something else that we're very passionate about in CLD, because we know that there are systems, there are private organizations within most of these communities where we work who could actually provide a lot of the support that we provide, but they're not inclined to do it because no one's kind of helped them to see the linking gap, to see how they connect as a system with the need, and to see how they connect with the organizations that are doing the defense work. And I'm sure everyone can tell the story of what that is, whether it's with a phone network, or with a bank, you can tell that story, because corporate social responsibility can no longer just be a token. We need to get to that point where we are connecting the real issues here and connecting people so that there's efficiency and effectiveness at the end. So all these trends, they're all multifaceted capacity development. They all have implications for us. And again, I can never really look at community-led development separate from capacity development, because if you're going to get communities to lead the development, you need to be able to think in terms of, are they ready to lead that development processes? Because, that goes back again to the reason why in the first place we're doing, why are we even doing this development in the first place? It's because we know that there's no capacity available. So we go back to capacity development. And for us in Pact, we definitely believe that capacity development is a process. It's an approach. It's an outcome. It's not an isolated event by any means whatsoever. And we believe that it must be intentional. Hello?
Hello? Seems disconnected.
Hi, we lost the presentation, I think.
Yeah, true.
Good. Okay. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Oh, good. And are you seeing a screen?
I don't see a screen, John. Oh, here, it's back. Yes.
Okay. And does it say capacity development at Pact?
Yes, it does.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Sia. Okay.
Fingers crossed.
So this jury-rigged system with using my phone. I think what happened was that like 3 people were sending me text messages and it blew the hotspot off.
Oh man.
So proceed, Billy.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. That was a nice break. So, I mean, I was just saying that for us, in Pact, capacity development is a continuous process. It's an approach. It's not an isolated event by any, and it's, we're interested in the outcome. And we also know now, it's not a question of belief any longer, that it needs to be intentional. So it needs to be part of the design from the beginning so that you're able to actually accomplish it. And it's much more than knowledge transfer. It's about co-creation. Again, going back to CLD and all that we lead and it's about co-creation, co-implementation, co-monitoring, co-everything. You do it together. That's the whole idea here, because you want to make sure you transfer the skills and the skill stays and the skill can work on its own. You should creatively use technology where it's available, and also recognizes the complex adaptive systems in which every single one of us as an organization operates, or as a government system, as the case may be. And it is, it's necessary for sustainability. Without capacity development, there's no way you can even attempt to think that you're going to sustain anything at all, because you need to be able to transfer that skill and be sure that that skill is actually working. And so for us, we've got, what we call capacity development pillars. I just wanted to share that. We've also got our development principles, on which is like the foundation, the thread that kind of runs across everything. We're very interested in quality, customization, partnership, and continuous learning at every single stage of this pillar. So whether we're scanning, we're analyzing, we're planning, we're acting, we're learning, we're doing everything. We're doing all this based on all these 4 principles that we have that drive us. And sometimes in terms of our framework, we say of who, of what. It could be from individuals to systems, to networks, to systems. So it grows bigger and bigger because we realize that these are all interdependent and they all have relations and links to one another. And what sometimes is technical, sometimes adaptive, sometimes influential. It just depends on the specific system we're working with and how then we do it in different ways. We can keep moving. And so just to say that within that, the pillars, we actually use a couple of tools, which a lot of us use already. But one of the ones that I wanted to call out a little bit about is the performance index. So we realized quickly around somewhere in the early 2000s that yes, we're measuring a lot, but most of our measurements are really at the output level. And we wanted to get at the outcome level. So if we strengthen capacity of a system, of an NGO, for instance, so what? then they begin to perform better. So, but how do we measure that performance? And so we worked together and we came up with this organizational performance index measure, which is endorsed by USAID, and it's actually something that we make sure that we include. So don't just do an assessment that looks at the output, but also look at the outcome so that you are sure that it's all geared towards leading an impact. Keep moving, and you can move. So thinking systems approach. Sorry, I think my slide messed up on that, so we can keep going. So I wanted to just underscore the fact that we completely understand that communities are complex and they're adaptive systems, and they're made up of numerous subparts. And this is the fundamental to the idea of systems, right? And that these parts are connected and they're driven by some purpose of some nature, right? If it is an organization they're contributing to a clinic, there's a connection and there's a purpose and there's a relationship. And they interact with each other in different ways. So you need to figure out what way it is, and then so that you can understand what it is you're strengthening and with their surrounding environment. So we're very much aware that there's a basic local system through which you got the input, and this input in forms of resources kind of does something that happens in that system for it to bring feedback and for you to be able to get at an output. And at every point in time, we're very aware that there's loads of things that are happening at each one of those stages. And so for us, we think of the framework's 10 principles for engaging local systems. And, there's also the prioritization around some of these things, because if you want to be able to actually deliver on a comprehensive outcome-based intervention, you need to be thorough, you need to be planned, and you need to understand what the system is and what guides it, and then be able to relate with each of those in terms of enhancing its capacity so that it's able to perform optimally. Keep moving.
Oops, wrong screen.
So just wanted to share this. I don't know if you've seen this Capacity 2.0 approach from USAID, but just to say that really the only part of it I wanted to talk about is what it emphasizes. And you see how that links and fits into what we do at CLD. The fact that Capacity 2.0 is emphasizing strengthening partners through building their connections, right? And their understanding of their country system, right? And it's helping partners to learn from their engagement, adapt to the systems as it changes, because we know it's dynamic, right? And to be able to sustain, right? Sustain themselves from within local resources and from local resources, and measuring performance instead of organizational characteristics. So a lot of what you will see is that at the measurement at the output level really measures a lot around the characteristics. So they've got the systems are in place now. So those systems, but the question is, we are interested in performance, and hence the OPI, which is why I wanted to call that tool out at the beginning. Can you keep going? So for us, again, impact in our own, translating this into what we do actually, right? So at the input level, we do a lot of we have a lot of capacity. So the upper part, we're looking at an organization as a system, right? The lower part, we're thinking of maybe the government systems in which they work and in which they interact with. So we've realized that there needs to be an action happening at all the parts to be addressing the specific gaps within each of them so that they can move together and work in synergy to create the improved service delivery. And it's this improved service delivery that will begin to bring about the improved outcomes, right? Which is what we're interested in, to push us up to the sustainable impact, which is where we want to be. So every interaction for us as capacity development people impact is an opportunity, So we use tools and processes that focus on system thinking and co-creation, adaptive management, and sustainability. Yeah. And, it's redesigned my slides. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, so just to talk a little bit more around that, around sustainable results. Again, we know that there are individuals, actors in this process. Sometimes organizations, sometimes entities, sometimes institutions. But also we know that there's a bigger system through which all this works. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that, and we can keep going. I mean, people will have the slides, so let me keep running. So in Capacity 2.0, really, what it is that we're saying, we kind of distilled out what specifically USAID is trying to get at, and I feel again is very relevant for this group, is that we examine how an organization fits in with other elements that create the greater local system, right? We're not interested in any isolation. We want to co-create. We want to co-select partners based on this broad analysis of the system and how helping the partner perform better will actually affect or create or make anything happen at the other levels, right? And we want to act as mentors and coaches to help partners understand how best to achieve their desired performance. So we're not coming as subject matter experts because this is about co-creation and community-led. So we're coming to say, guys, we want to work together and we want you to be at the front, and we will continue to support in mentorship to provide the technical competence that they need to be able to come up with a more effective performance-based plan. So we promote the importance of connections and communication, social capital, best fit approaches, and that speaks to our key quality of customization. What we do in Uganda cannot be the same thing as what we're doing in I don't know, let's say even in Kenya, even though they're both in East Africa, right? There's a customization element of it that needs to work so that it becomes best fit. Can you keep going? And then, so I'm just continuing. The interest here is enabling of communities, enabling of partners. We don't want to do it. We want to enable them to do it, because if we're going to address the decentralization trend, we need to get to that point where we're enabling partners to be able, communities to be able to own processes and systems and determine their own desired performance, set their own goals, and the best path to achieve it within the context of whether it's a community or an organization. And so the focus is on recipient learning, adaptation, and renewal, right? So measure performance instead of assessing capacity. So again, it's getting down to the fact that, you know what, we're done doing all these assessments. These assessments alone, we need to think of it and the interrelationship within the other larger systems. So yeah, I'll get to the end so that we can ask questions. So just wanted to share one of the great ways that we believe that community-led development could be accomplished in terms of a tool, which that's the collective impact. That's actually a tool that we use. We use versions and iterations and parts of it in different things that we do and in the work we do. So just wanted to share the specific, in terms of you can go to the next slide, sorry. I'm moving my slides and thinking the slides are moving with me. So it's essentially isolated versus collective impact. What's the difference? And I wanted to share this slide particularly because it's helpful for you to realize what I'm doing. Is it isolated, or am I interested in the collectivity of this impact? And so it's not about doing things in silos any longer, because doing things in silo can only achieve very little change. Yeah, and we can keep going. And it's, I've also put out the 5 elements of it, because there are 5 grounding elements that you need to be aware of. And that's that, there's a common agenda, mutually reinforcing high interest leveraging activities. There needs to be an anchor infrastructure. And we thank God for the Hunger Project, who's leading and pushing forward the community-led development. And so the rest of us can buy into it. And shared measurement, learning, and adaptation. And then there has to be continuous. And again, you see that CLD is focusing a lot on making sure that there is shared measurement and learning, right? With the research, I think the first research group that's going to be taking off is the
today at 2.
Today at 2. So I mean that's powerful.
There's 2 groups, research and learning. Sia, who's on the phone, is one of the co-chairs of the learning, right? Sia and Janet and
Yes.
and Sarah here. So I mean this is a critical thing as a group that we need to do. So that we're also able to kind of call on the evidence. Why are we doing this? We need to know why we're doing it and what it has achieved. And of course the continuous engagement and needing to have a backbone organization. And I think I'm getting almost there. I also wanted to share that whether it's a community, I found this interesting because it actually came to play in work that I did recently in Madagascar, that the 6 conditions of system change actually play whether we'd like it or not, you know? And I think part of the problem is that at the beginning, we don't really think about it, but they do. And, you know, and it's just really saying that in terms of, if we want structural change to happen, we need to think in terms of the policies, the practices, the resource flows, right? But that's not enough, because that in itself is not going to create any system change on its own. You also need to think about the relationships and the connections. And this builds and pulls upon the Capacity 2.0 work that we do, as well as what CLD is poised to do. And you need to consider the power dynamics, right? We can do all of this stuff. And I remember being part of the launch in Ghana, a little bit of it, and realizing that without those traditional endorsements from the communities, we may never get anywhere, because we need them to endorse that this is what would make sense and this is what would work. And so there's a lot of decentralization that needs to happen at all levels and with everything. And then also, of course, the mental models is the greatest part of it. Unfortunately, that has to happen because there has to be a mindset around what we think, around our beliefs, around, you know, for this system to actually create or produce a change. I was also just going to share some other systems-informed capacity development ideas, like net mapping, co-creation, adaptive management, learn experimentation, system-level capacity development, and not just individual. And then stop talking, because I've spoken for too long already, and either have us have a little bit of a convo here, or if we do not have time, just some food for thought, because it would be nice for us to understand, as we shift measurement at the system and network level, how do we measure impact and sustainability? Or we can leave this for the research group. And also, stakeholder buy-in is often in the implementation of systems-based approaches. What successful models have we done within us? And this is a great group. You know, and how has the challenges of getting the stakeholder buy-in, which is a critical mass, how has those changes been addressed? And what else can we measure so that we can get at this system level change that we're talking about? So with that, I'd like to say thank you and keep quiet.
Okay, Billy, thank you. Any comments, questions, or conversation from Abele's presentation?
If they heard me.
Yeah. It all seems to be working. My little cell phone seems to be providing data still.
This is Allison from Global Giving. I mentioned this in the chat, but in case someone's not watching, we at Global Giving actually use Pact's OPI tool in a 2-year study of our own impact, and we just published the results. So I left a link to that if you want to see what our results were, but also how we use the process. We have a whole paper written up about the process of using the OPI.
That's fabulous. And we'll, is there a toolkit for learning to use it? Are there like YouTube videos and things like that that would train field staff to use this tool?
So we're actually working on some blended learnings with Aga Khan Foundation on that.
Okay.
But we do have a handbook on the OPI.
Great.
And we also have a module on the AutoRad platform that essentially participants or implementers through an online tutorial of how to upload your OPI data, what to look for when you use the Capacity Solutions platform.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So we do have a Capacity Solutions platform, which is it's for capacity development data from CSOs around the world. So it's a very interesting, but that's a platform, and it's a whole long presentation in itself. But we also have that, and definitely happy to share.
Great. Well, I will definitely get the links to that and to the Global Giving study based on this out to everyone in the follow-up message that comes from this call.
And is this slideshow?
Yes.
Is there a link to that as well? Okay.
Exactly. It will.
Yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to now stop.
Yeah, we leave our email addresses just in case.
Oh, that's good.
You actually want to see our faces again?
We do. Every month if humanly possible. Okay, I'm going to try to now, if I go back to the other slides if I can.
There's an O. I didn't even touch it. It doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll pause for a second while I wake up a slide that had to shut to get us here.
So clearly there were no questions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
That was a great presentation.
And it's
Yeah, I
actually
really
two
appreciate
things.
it.
Either
You're a good presenter, Belly. That was good.
Yeah.
And you had teamwork. You had collective impact. You demonstrated collective impact in the presentation itself.
it was a co-created, the whole team co-created this, and decided to come do it together. Yeah, definitely the sum is definitely greater than individuals, regardless of what it is you're doing. So.
Yep. Okay, so I think everyone is still with us. As you see a little word loading there, then we will jump a few slides ahead here. Here is the countries that, as of a few days ago, I was aware of were actively working with the movement. And I just want to see, before I go into some specific requests about some of the chapters that are forming in Guatemala and Kenya and Rwanda, if anybody has a report from any of these countries on the latest and greatest at the country level. Diana, or any news from Mexico? I know I dragged two of your mighty teammates off to upstate New York for the past week.
Yeah, actually, we are missing them a lot. We haven't had the opportunity for talking to them yet, but well, I mean personally. But yeah, I want to share with you all that our main focus has been to enroll all the organizations towards our learnings from the first year as movement and towards the strategic planning for 2019. And we have been working on the purpose and intended outcomes for the session to have an effective work to effective activities where all organizations are inspired and clear on what have been missing and how are we going to do to accelerate the movement in Mexico. And
that's fabulous.
Yeah, for this, to support this intention, one of our volunteers, THP volunteers, who is also a researcher at the Social Research Institute in the UNAM, the National University, helped us to design a workshop to work with the organizations to develop an advocacy strategy. And actually today, later today, we will be presenting our vision about the movement in Mexico and discuss the creation of the movement's advocacy strategy for to work with the new administration. And that will, the administration is going to start working on December 1st, so we have a short time for that. And we will map new organizations that can join the movement as well as key decision makers on the new administration. And I think we all think that this is going to be interesting, an interesting space for discussing the movement, especially in an academic space, and its relevance for building a common understanding among all of the organizations of the movement.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I want to jump to this slide. This says regional leadership and coordination. I just returned from a week of strategy meetings within this backbone organization that you were talking about, the Hunger Project, and we have taken 4 of our country directors and transformed them into regional resource people for driving the strengthening of the movement in their regions. So Lorena's on the line. She is now going to coordinate Latin America. Daisy, who you heard earlier, for East Africa, Pascal for West Africa, Roland's for Southern Africa. And we haven't really had discussions yet, although there's a lot of people on the line today from India, where it's quite late in the evening. But we really want to develop a Asia Pacific coordination structure as well, so people can do calls and meetings and support more frequently and better than I can by myself. There was a little ding. I hope it didn't kill the internet again.
No, it was me.
No, no,
It was
no.
you dinging. Okay. Any, Lorena, Daisy, Pascal, Rollins, anyone want to say anything about regional coordination? I will send out contact information. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this is Daisy. And as you've just heard, I'll be sort of coordinating or supporting the East African countries on behalf of the Hunger Project, at least, and all our partners in the 5 or 6 East African countries, that is Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, Tanzania, Rwanda, and we'll see about the DRC. But mainly we'll be looking at how we can strengthen our chapters within those organizations and achieve those goals which John outlined as we were beginning the meeting.
Great, Daisy. So so as we've mentioned a couple of times, the research working group is continuing its meeting today. The learning working group is continuing following the adoption. Sarah, we succeeded in getting all of the posts from the old website to the new website, so they're all there now.
Yay.
Are
they live?
Yeah, they're live. If you go under the who, you'll see a page on the Locust merger, and then it has a list of all the posts from the Locust website. I thought the Locust website was going to stay fully live, but it's now just redirecting to us, which is good. So there are a number of upcoming events. Let me just mention that we haven't absolutely confirmed that the launch of CLD Kenya will happen on the 5th. That's the day I'm really hoping it will. Carol's on the line, other people in Kenya are on the line, and we're wanting to really get this sorted out in the next couple of days because, airplane tickets and hotel rooms. But part of our hope is to leverage the power of devolution, decentralization that Kenya has gone through, where they have real meaningful public resources and real meaningful decision making at the county level. And we're inviting the county governor, who has been the real success story of citizen engagement in county government, to be the keynote speaker. So hopefully through the week I can send confirmations out to everybody that that is indeed happening. Heifer has offered to, they have a lovely campus in Nairobi, and they've offered to host the meetings there. So, and then my favorite set of holidays, the 16 Days of Activism Against Violence Against Women, is coming up. We'll be doing daily tweets and blog posts on that, and I'll send it out to all of you to share with all of your social media people, because, the kind of behavior change that leads to ending impunity for violence against women really has to happen in communities. Let me back up one. So the other thing I want to mention is that a lot of Interaction members, CEOs, these are US-based international NGOs, the CEOs get together in December 12th to 14th. I have asked Interaction they are ending at 11, so I'm going to organize a CEO luncheon for on the 14th for CLD member CEOs if they're part of Interaction. So that is definitely happening, and I'm getting a message out to all relevant CEOs. I won't know which ones are actually planning to attend the CEO retreat, so I'm just going to blast all the Interaction member CEOs who are members of CLD. Then we need to start working now on the two big advocacy moments that are coming up at the United Nations. The Commission on the Status of Women has always been a big opportunity for us, because if women are going to truly have a voice, if all women are going to have a voice, it's going to need to happen in communities, because that's where they live. And so we want to get member states, and you or your CEOs do know member states, to co-sponsor an inside the UN side event, so we can have the biggest impact we can with the governments. Same with the high-level political forum. This year's high-level political forum on the SDGs, 51 countries have signed up to do voluntary national reviews, the most ever. And goal 16, that's our goal, good governance and participatory decision-making, is under the focus of this year's high-level political forum. So again, a number of us have already started reaching out to member states, friends we have in the foreign ministries, etc., to get these countries to really co-host an event, have their ministers speak, for example, about how committed their government is to empowering communities and devolving resources to the community level. So I will be following up with everyone. We cannot have too many co-sponsors. You know, this is like a bill in the Congress. You cannot have too many co-sponsors. So but it has to be a member state. The specialized agencies cannot guarantee us a room. Only the member states can do that at the UN. So that's really everything. The next meeting will be at the same time in the Eastern time zone. We're going off daylight savings time this weekend, I believe. Yes, this weekend. So I'll send out to everyone a message with your time zone around the world when the next meeting will happen, along with a copy of the recording and the slides from this show. Yes, Abeli.
Yeah, so I wanted to just find out a little bit about the Kenyan launch, because we're trying to reach out to our country office to participate.
Yeah.
And so the question I had was, are you thinking in terms of something similar to the Ghana one?
Yes.
Where you had co-sponsorship? I don't remember how that worked.
Well,
the
yes. The Ghana launch was paid for by about half a dozen members who each pitched in $1,000.
Yeah.
We may do that way. Or I also had a really good meeting with the Rockefeller Foundation, and they said, you know, we don't have autonomy anymore. We can only give small amounts of money. And I said, well, I can help you with that. I know just where you should put that small amount of money.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call them right away to follow up on that, to see if they will just give us the money, because I'd like to be able to bring people in from the surrounding countries.
Yes.
Because you know, Kenya is such a beacon of hope for Africa in general with its devolution.
Yeah.
What's the launch involved?
The launch, each country, when it launches, it does a big event, and it has usually a representative from the local government ministries, from traditional leaders, if it's a country with traditional leaders, from capacity building organizations and other sponsoring organizations. It's usually been kind of a half-day symposium with a reception and a press conference.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what I would like is maybe because it would be nice to be able to, I like the fact that we had an invitation and a banner that had members logos on it.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that was a good way to communicate the whole idea of integration, and the whole idea that there's more than one person. There's more than one organization leading this. There's got to be others. Yeah. And then if it means the pitching, then so long as we have it early enough, so we can do all the advocacy required, even if it's $1,000.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to have a final yes or no answer by Monday.
Okay.
Which would be exactly 1 month in advance.
Okay.
So, but I hope that I can even nail it down by Friday.
Okay. So. All right, that's cool.
Other questions, comments before we close? I know we've already lost a few people who left right at the turn of the hour.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tolerating our horrible internet problems here today. I won't let it happen again, even if I have to move. So thank you all, and I'll talk to you in regularly.
All right.
But
Thank you, John.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
thanks for being with us.
Thank you all.
Bye. Bye, John.
Gracias.
Bye, Rita.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi,
Bye,
Rita.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.